Hello everyone, my name is Anirudha Joshi and I am in the role of Vice President Finance on the SIGCHI Executive Committee. Let me share my screen. Yeah. So in this year's VP Finance report, I wanted to talk about two main points. Firstly, I wanted to give you a summary on the state of the finances in FY20 so far. As a part of this, I also will update you about the project codes that we have put into operation from this financial year. Secondly, I wanted to update you about the budget for the next financial year and the effect of COVID-19 might have on it. After the town hall meeting at the last CHI in Glasgow, I had written this blog with some notes on last year's SIGCHI budget. I had also presented this graph in which I had tracked three numbers over the last few years. This red line shows the balance that the ACM requires SIGCHI to maintain. It is 50% of the budgeted organizational expenses and 40% of the budgeted conference expenses. As you can imagine, this has become very important and I will come back to it. This blue line shows the balance of the SIGCHI EC that the SIGCHI EC has been budgeting for. And the green line shows the actual balance at the end of the year over the years. So here is the same graph with the projected balance for FY20 thrown in. This is balance till June 2020. And the required balance for FY21 added to it. This information is updated as of January 2020 when we had the SIGCHI EC meeting to plan for the budget for FY21. You will notice that the actual balance, the green line, has consistently been above the budgeted balance, the blue line, and also above the required balance, the red line. Now, this does not sound like a bad thing in this particular year, but this is not a smart financial practice to be consistently unable to spend the money that you plan to spend. As I wrote in the blog, there are three main reasons why the actual balance stays above the budgeted balance. Firstly, which is a good reason, the conferences break even more often than not. This is a reflection of the financial maturity of our volunteers who organize these events every year. Secondly, many of our volunteers propose several other projects. By projects, I mean community events such as summer schools or winter schools, or chapter events, or purchasing or building tools for the community to work together more efficiently and so on. Often, it is very hard to accurately budget for these one-off projects or events, and people often spend less money than they budgeted for. Thirdly, so far it has been extremely difficult to track all projects. We budget, but we were unable to track. The accounting system of ACM was set up to track expenses by account codes such as volunteers or speaker travel, meeting expenses, travel grants, or purchase of software licenses, rather than purpose for which these things happen. This is where the project codes come in. Starting from July 2019, the ACM implemented project codes in its accounting system. These are additional tags that we put on expenses, thus allowing us to know how much we are spending on projects. So for the current financial year, we set up 30 project codes. As you can see, each of these are things that members of our community care about. Project codes now allow us to track expenses on all projects in the format we really care about. This will help us track expenses and budget better going forward. This brings me to the second part of this presentation, which is the budget for the next financial year, and particularly what effect COVID-19 might have on our finances. Like every year, we worked from October to January to propose a large number of community development activities that we can take up during the next financial year. However, all that was based on pre-COVID-19 plans, and everything has changed since. So although we worked very hard on those plans, I'm not presenting them anymore. So many people want to know about the financial health of SIGCHI post COVID-19. Given that many conferences are cancelled, are we staring at huge losses? One person put it quite succinctly. What is the funding model? Are we host? Well, the short answer is not yet. As I mentioned, SIGCHI maintains a minimum balance in the budget, which is a proportion of our expenses. The purpose of this balance is to act as a buffer should adverse events happen. So far, SIGCHI balance seems to be sufficient to take care of our losses in the current financial year and possibly even in the next financial year. Even so, the financial impact of COVID-19 is not fully known yet. It might turn out to be much worse than what we know so far. So we need to be careful. With this in mind, we are reworking our FY21 budget as and when more information becomes available. Specifically with respect to conferences, many conferences are either going virtual or are planned as hybrid conferences. Conferences are reworking their budgets and funding models with the aim of minimizing losses and maximizing participation. Yet, given the expenses already incurred and contractual agreements already in place, and the ongoing uncertainty, some losses might be unavoidable. We know some of those numbers already, but it is too early to know what the overall impact will be in FY21. We just have to be flexible and deal with the situation as it arises. Meanwhile, we are making prudent decisions in anticipation and making provision in the reworked FY21 budget. All the volunteer meetings have moved online, saving both volunteer travel and meeting expenses. Likewise, as conferences are going virtual, more people might be able to attend them without the need for travel grants. Many of our community events, such as chapter meetings and summer schools, are going virtual, saving further money. On the whole, we hope to support more community events in the next financial year with less money. We are living in interesting times indeed. Stay safe and thank you for your time.